This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Cynthia Lyons, Naperville, Illinois. Bohemian, San Francisco, The Elegant Art of Dining by Clarence Edwards. Section number 16. Paste makes waste. In an Italian grocery store, we noticed a great variety of pastes in boxes arranged along the counter and began counting them. The proprietor noticed us and, with a characteristic shrug of his shoulders, said, "That is but a few of them. We have not room to show them all." In response to our inquiry regarding the number of kinds of paste made by Italians, he said there were more than 75. Ordinarily, we think of 1. Spaghetti, or possibly 2, including macaroni. If our knowledge goes a little farther, we think also of tagliarini, which is the Italian equivalent of noodles, as it is made with eggs. In New York, we were much impressed with the stress they laid on the serving of spaghetti, and one restaurant went so far as to advertise dinners given under the spaghetti vine. It appears that this is the only paste they know anything about. After one eats tagliarini or ravioli, one feels like paraphrasing the darky and saying, "Go away, spaghetti, you done lost your taste." Then comes tortellini, which, like ravioli, combines paste with meat and spinach. These may be considered the most prominent of the pastes, the others being variants in the making and cutting, each serving a special purpose in cooking, some being for soups, others for sauces, and others for dressing for meats. It is more than probable that the great variety comes from individual tastes in cutting or rolling. All Italian restaurants serve the paste as a relève rather than as an entree, which it usually follows, preceding the roast in the dinner. As a separate and distinct dish, it can well be made to serve as a full meal, especially when tagliarini is prepared after the following recipe. Tagliarini des Beaux-Arts. Cook 1 pound of tagliarini in boiling water 25 minutes. Then draw off the water. To the tagliarini, add a handful of mushrooms which have been sliced and fried in butter. Then add 3 chicken livers which have been chopped small and fried, 1 sliced truffle, 1 red pepper chopped fine, and a little Parmesan cheese. Make a brown sauce of 1/3 beef broth thickened with melted butter and flour and 2/3 tomato sauce, and pour this over the tagliarini. Sprinkle with the Parmesan cheese and serve very hot from a chafing dish. By Oliver, chef of Restaurant des Beaux-Arts, Paris. In San Francisco, one finds both the imported and the domestic paste, and frequently one hears the assertion that the imported is the better. This idea is born of the thought that all things from Europe are better than the same made in America. In fact, the paste that comes from Italy is neither so good in taste nor is it so clean in the making. We have visited a number of paste factories in San Francisco and have found them all scrupulously clean, with the best of materials in the composition of the pastes. One often wonders how the pastes came to be so many and how they received their names. Names of some of them are accidents, as is illustrated by macaroni. According to an Italian friend who vouches for the fact, it received its name from an expression of pleasure. Macari means fine, excellent, and the superlative is macaroni. A famous Italian gourmet constantly desired the new dishes to please his taste. And one day his chef carried to him something that was unusual. The gourmet tasted it, cried out, "Macari!" tasted again, threw out his arms in delight, and cried, "Macaroni!" "What is the name of this wonderful dish?" "You have named it. It is macaroni." Tips and tipping. Tipping is variously designated. Some say it is a nuisance and should be abolished. Some call it an outrage and ask for legislative interference. Some say it is an extortion and refuse to pay it. Some say it is a necessary evil and suffer it. The wise ones look at it a little differently. Possibly it is best explained or excused, whichever way you wish to call it, by one of Gouverneur Morris's characters in a recent story, who says, "Whenever I go anywhere I find persons in humble situations who smile at me and wish me well. I smile back and wish them well. It is because at some time or other I have tipped them. To me the system has never been an annoyance, but a delightful opportunity for the exercise of tact and judgment." We look upon tipping as a part of expense to be calculated upon, necessary to ensure good service, not only now but in the future, and it should always be computed in the expense of a trip or a dinner. Tipping, to our minds, is the oil that makes the wheels of life run smoothly. The amount of the tip is always a matter of individual judgment, dependent on the service rendered and the way it is rendered. The good traveler wants to tip properly, neither too little nor too much, thereby getting the best service, for in the last analysis the pleasure of a trip depends upon the service received. American prodigality and asininity is responsible for much of the abuse of tipping. Too many Americans, when they travel, desire to appear important, and the only way they can accomplish this is by buying the subserviency of menials who laugh at them behind their backs. A tip should always depend upon the service rendered. We make it a rule to withhold the tip from a careless or inconsiderate waiter, and always add to the tip a word of commendation when there has been extra good service. The amount of the tip depends, first on the service, second on the amount of the bill, and third on the character of the place where you are served. When we order a specially prepared dinner with our suggestions as to its composition and service, we tip the head waiter, the chef, the waiter, and the busboy. We have given dinners where the tips amounted to fully half as much as the dinner itself, and we felt that this part of the expense brought us the greatest pleasure. It is impossible to make a hard and fast rule regarding how much to give a waiter. Each person must use his or her own judgment. If you are in a foreign country, you might do as we did on our first trip to Paris. We wanted to do what was right, but not what most Americans think is right. We were at a hotel where only French were usually guests, and in order to do the right thing, we took the proprietor into our confidence and explained to him our dilemma. We asked him whom to tip and how much to give, and he got us out of our difficulty, and we found that the tips amounted to about as much for one whole week as we had been held up for in one day at the Waldorf Astoria. The mythical land. Notwithstanding the fact that Webster gives no recognition in his dictionary to the land of Bohemia or the occupants thereof, the land exists, perhaps not in a material way, but certainly mentally. Some have not the perception to see it. Some know not the language that admits entrance. Some pass it by every day without understanding it. Yet it as truly exists as any of the lands told of in our childhood fables and fairy stories. The old definition of Bohemian was a vagabond, a wayfarer. Possibly that definition may, to a certain extent, be true of the present-day Bohemian, for he is a mental vagabond and a mental wayfarer. In our judgment, the word comes from the French bon homme, for surely the Bohemian is a good man.